In last week's video, I showed you how to set up a Mini Effect Gizmo X with an FM3 effect processor and showed how to control the Mini Effect Gizmo using preset changes on the FM3. Users were quick to point out that the preset switching was a bit slow, and that is the case with some effect processors, especially the more newer, complicated ones. They take a while to switch presets. And so maybe it wasn't the best example, for that one, but that's what we had on hand. With other processors that may switch quicker, or if it's the only option, the preset method in the previous video is definitely the way to go. Now, however, on the FM3 and the FX3, a much better way to do it is using scenes. That's exactly what scenes are designed for. They're kind of sort of a sub preset within a preset, and they're designed to switch, very quickly. So I'm going to show you how to set up the Mini Effect Gizmo X with the FM3. This will apply directly to the FX3 as well. This method does require some setup on the FM3 itself, and so we're using the FM3 editor to do this. You can do it on the device itself, but this tends to be easier. So we're going to just work with the factory presets here, and the first thing you do is just take an empty box here, doesn't matter where, and add the MIDI block to it. It doesn't actually need to be connected to anything because it's not in the audio path at all. And so now what this allows us to do is specify which MIDI commands the FM3 sends when you change scenes. So we have scene 1 selected here, and we want it to send program change to channel 1, which is the default for, well, both the FM3 and the Mini Effect Gizmo, and we're going to send value 0. So that's actually good. So it's going to select the first preset on the Mini Effect Gizmo when we select scene 1. And now we'll go to scene 2, and we see that this is still the same, but what we can do here is change it to program change 1. So now we have 2 unique program changes, and we'll do a third scene, and we say program change channel 1, and we'll change the value to 2. And so the most important thing, well, aside from the channel, is that each scene has a different program change number, and that's how the Mini Effect Gizmo knows to do something different. I'm only going to set up 3 scenes for this preset because that's how many you can easily access from the FM3's foot switches. If you're using an FX3 or an external MIDI controller, you can set up all 8 for each preset, and that's no problem. So we'll go to and do one more preset here and switch up to this one, and we're going to add a MIDI block here. And we'll see that the settings are sort of carried over from the previous one, and I will make sure that this one is now number 3, because we want the numbers to not be the same as the other preset, but we want them to continue on the numbering so that, again, the Mini Effect Gizmo knows that we're not trying to do the same preset again. So we go here, and scene 2, we go to number 4, and scene 3, we go to number 5. And I will save this. And now we've done the setup on the FM3, we can go and program our Mini Effect Gizmo. And so I've got our 2 devices here. The FM3 is connected to the Mini Effect Gizmo using a 5-pin MIDI cable from MIDI out on the FM3 to MIDI in on the Mini Effect Gizmo. And as I mentioned last time, the Mini Effect Gizmo has a 7-pin connector on its rear, but using a 5-pin MIDI cable is fine. Just make sure that the gap in the pins is pointing up. So we've got our 2 things together here. I have the FM3 in scene selection mode right now on the first preset that we just set up. And what we can do is go and select a preset, or excuse me, select a scene, in this case the scene 1, crunch, and I will turn on 2 loops on the Mini Effect Gizmo and hold the buffer button until the lights flash. And now I go to scene 2, cranked, and turn on a couple more and store that. And we'll do the third. And you'll notice that the switching is much quicker now when you do scenes. And so, as many presets, as you want to set up using our methods that we showed earlier, and you're off to the races. There you go. So one more note, you can specify up to 128 or 0 through 127 for the program change value, which at 3 scenes per preset gives you 42 presets that you can set up. And so the question is, well, what if you want to do more than that? Well, there's a couple things you can do. You can either start reusing numbers, like if you have 2 presets that are pretty similar and you would want to use the same Mini Effect Gizmo settings, you could just reuse the program change numbers from the other preset, and that will effectively link them together, giving them the same Mini Effect Gizmo settings at all times. If that's not acceptable, you can get into Midi Banks, and that multiplies by 8 the number of presets that you have to work with on the Meg X. So to do that, you just need to send 2 MIDI messages instead of 1. And so what we'll do is we'll start here, and we'll do send CC, channel 1, number 0, value 0. And so that's basically selecting MIDI bank number 0, or the first MIDI bank. And like we have presets 0 through 127, we have banks of 0 through 7. And so basically that multiplies, it's 128 presets times 8 banks, or 1,024 presets that you have access to. So you always have to send the bank number first, and then the second thing would be the preset number, and we can set this to 0. And so this accesses the first bank and the first preset within that bank. And we would go here and do the same thing. And we still want to stay in the same bank, but now we want we want a different preset in that bank. And one more, we go here and set value 0, again the same bank. And this time we'll do preset 2. Okay. So we'll save that, and let's go to the next preset. But let's pretend this is, actually not just the second preset in there, but maybe our, 100th preset we've set up, or even the 43rd, because we run out at 42. So we need a new bank here, and so we would set it CC, and the value we're going to set to 1. So now we're in bank 1, and so we have a whole new group of program changes 0 through 127 that are different than when we were sending bank 0. And so we can set up our scenes on this device with bank 1 and our program change numbers, and do the same thing, only the bank number changes. And so by doing this, you've got access to an awful lot more presets. That's it for this week. Stay tuned, and we'll have more tips and tricks and setup information on the Mini Effect Gizmo.